Good day, everyone. This is John Scarborough. I've got 2 goats and a ram out here. This ram's a little bit less than a year old. I wanted to do a little walk around in here and kind of show y'all where we've got these goats. We did a couple videos in the past showing some other places they've done some really good, impressive clearing on. So we've just now moved them from there. We should have some videos out right now on some of those other results. So go back there and check that out. But I'm going to kind of do a little walk around and show y'all where we got them. Our back fence is actually this pond over here. You can see there's no fence here, and we've just got the back side of this pond. Let me do a little walk around here. What we're trying to do is clean up a lot of this mess right in here. You can tell we've got our corners. We've actually staked them off and tied them off. That seems to work pretty good doing it that way. Incidentally, the reason we went ahead and put a ram in here, this is how we're holding our rams right now. This is how we're actually holding them off of keeping them away from the ewes right now. But anyway, I'm going to kind of show you all around. This spot was cleared off. I've got several videos of me cleaning it up. I was cleaning it up and collecting logs for shiitake mushrooms. We've also got videos on that as well. Y'all can go check all of that out. But a lot of the underbrush started coming up in here. And there's just all manner of junk. Stumps and trash people had piled up before I owned the place. So I don't really want to get any equipment in there. They also used to feed hay underneath those trees. And they left all the strings on there. And y'all know how much I don't like that. So that's all in there. So this is a really good economical way to clean this mess up right here. So we actually weeded it all the way around the edge here, all the way around the perimeter. We know that we want to leave these goats here. Y'all know that I practice heavy rotational grazing, mob grazing in some cases as well. So to do that, normally I'm moving fairly frequently. But when you're setting animals up like this, you're planning on leaving them there in a longer duration in order to increase a heavier impact, so that you can, because when you're doing quick movements, you're trying to keep the growth that is there. But when you do a heavier impact like this, you're doing it intentionally to put a hurting on the overgrowth. Okay, you're trying to push that overgrowth back. Okay, so a lot of times the reason we mob graze or rotationally graze is to keep from overgrazing grass. Okay. But in here, these goats actually go after broadleafs and woodier plants first before they do after the grass in most cases. So we're actually going to overgraze all of these woodier plants in order to put a good size hurting on them. And so that's kind of the intention in this instance. So we're going to kind of show you all around. This is somewhat experimental to me. I know that goats and sheep are less likely to cross through creeks and things like that, and they're not as bad in the water as cows are. And you can fence them off and let them drink out of a pond without fencing them out of a pond. A lot of times if we do cattle, we'll fence them out of the pond to keep them from tearing up our ponds. But I have never tried using a pond as a fence. You know what I mean? So it is possible. And we've got some really hot weather. Today was 103. So it is possible. You can tell when you look at this, it's very possible for these sheep and goats, well, 1 sheep and 2 goats, to decide to come around there and get out. It's highly possible. Will they? I don't know. That's just going to be a matter of time. I'm only experimenting with this because, well, for one, I'd love to know. But number 2, I know for a fact where I'm at, I have no concerns. Like if they get out of this spot, I don't have to worry about them getting out on the road. If I was concerned, if I had any doubts that they would, if they got out of this, they would go get on the roads, I would never try this. Not without knowing, okay? So it's okay to experiment. In fact, I would encourage experimentation, okay? You can't be afraid to fail if you're going to move forward, okay? In fact, too much fear of failure I'll say it like this. I'm generally a fairly conservative guy, but when it comes to business and trying to invest and increase new ways of doing things, I tend to not be very conservative. I have somewhat of a conservative approach to a lot of my different businesses, but I tend to be a lot more, I like to test things out and see how they're going to work. But I test those waters out with more of a conservative approach, if that makes sense. So in other words, I'm still careful, even though I'm always testing and always experimenting, and sometimes I'm failing, you know, to figure those things out. But I'm always careful. In other words, I don't experiment with everything that I have, okay? So that's something I'm doing, is I'm experimenting here, and it's a little bit of a gamble. I mean, if they get out, I'm going to have to go after them and go get them and everything. These goats are fairly docile, but, you know, like that ram, he can still be a little bit of a, I mean, that male goat, I think you call it a buck, he can still be a little bit of a handful to go after and catch. Well, he can be a lot of a handful. I ain't even going to lie about it. Sometimes it seems like goats and rams are harder to handle than bulls. But anyway, so I wouldn't dare do anything like that if I had any thought of them getting out on the road or getting hurt. So I know for a fact that they're going to be perfectly safe if they do get out. With that being said, that's what we're going to try. We're just going to experiment with this. My hopes for this is to see them do a lot of the same that they did on the last video. But anyway, so we're going to see. I'm kind of in the back of my mind, honestly, I'm really hoping they'll kind of clean up the edge of this pond right here, just a little bit. I know that I don't think they're going to get out into the pond. I really don't see that happening. Me and my wife were actually joking last night, and we were like, man, you know, we have all sorts of ways to clean stuff up, but it's just kind of hard to clean some of this stuff up out in the pond. If we could just figure some way of crossing a duck and a goat, we could figure out how to clean up this pond. I'm not sure what you would call that, but if we ever can figure that out, maybe we'll have something. No, we have actually, like you can tell over in here, this is cleaned up. So on occasion, we will let the cows in certain spots in order to clean it up. So we like to fish out of this right here. And actually, we're okay with a lot of that brush there because it's good for fishing. But I like to keep some of that cleaned up. So sometimes I'll actually open it up to where they can only get in right here, and they'll actually clean, the cattle will get in there and actually clean that up and kill that out. So if I wanted to kill that out, all I'd have to do is put up a hot wire to where they can only get in right there, and they would eventually kill that out as well. But anyway, I do want to see what will happen with the goats. How well will they clean it up to the pond? How easy will they make it to get moved around? I was very impressed with what they did before over there. But so far, I'm very impressed with this net wire. We're using chicken netting for them because that's the stuff. We needed more chicken netting, so instead of buying goat netting, we actually bought the chicken netting because we knew that we would use more chicken netting. I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to continue to do this with goats. But so far, I've been impressed enough with the results of it. I may end up buying some goat netting specifically. I'm not sure. I mean, it costs more to get the chicken netting. So I don't know for sure. But so far, I've definitely been impressed with it. It's definitely a little bit of a learning curve for getting it put up, especially with our very hard clay soils. I mean, we have rock solid hard clay with lots of rock and everything else down in there, and it can be a challenge. So I do want to do a in-depth video on our experiences for putting this up, kind of the things that, you know, how we kind of get through some of the challenges and stuff. I know that there are other videos online about that, but I want to go ahead and do my own video on it, kind of talking about some of the things that we've had to get past and the struggles that we've struggled with, because I haven't seen a lot of people with the stuff that they're working with. I haven't seen them working with the same soils that we are. So if there's anybody out there that's working with solid, pure clay, and they're understanding the difficulties of some of these, and maybe they've even tried some of these out, some of these different types of, you know, grazing where you're putting up different types of hot wire and temporary fences and temporary paddocks. Like, it can be a real challenge for putting up fences, especially for daily mob grazing. It can be a very, very real challenge, especially in this drought. Okay, so if anybody else understands that struggle and they've been through that, they've seen that with the red clay, put a comment in there. I'd love to see it. But anyway, guys, so yeah, once I feel confident that I've truly got it figured out and I've got a couple of tricks